Good evening. It's so good to see everybody here. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. And we are so happy this evening to have Jamey Garner with us at the Chester Public Library. Welcome, Jamey.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here. I haven't been to the Chester Public Library in years, and here I am, virtually
Well,
at the library.
virtually at the library. That's pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, Jamey, I'm going to start off just putting you on the spot right away. When was the last time you were at the Chester Public Library?
Oh, well, it wasn't that long ago. I think I stopped in a couple of years ago to show someone, probably show the guys in the band what a fantastic library we really have in Chester, which is, not only does it looks impressive from the outside, but then you go inside and it's like a movie set. It's really a fantastic place to be.
Well, thank you, Jamey. You know, you're right. We are so fortunate here in Chester to have such a beautiful library. And I didn't know that. I didn't know you were here with the guys a few years ago. You know, my memory takes me back even further. Like, have you ever done any live performances here at the Chester Library, Jamey?
I'm sure I must have at some point or another. I think one of my earliest appearances there was as a breakdancer, probably.
Oh,
Probably back in the early 80s or the mid 80s, something like that. Yeah.
do you still, do you still have those moves?
Do I still have the breakdancing moves? Still do the worm? Still do the worm. That's about it. Is that the worm? The wave, whatever that is, Once it's with you, it never leaves, just like riding a bike.
You got it. You got it. Tell me what it was like for you, Jamey, growing up in Chester.
Well, I think that, I think that maybe I was, my generation, or maybe the one after me, might have been the last generation to play, Atom League or a junior division baseball. And when you win, get to ride around town in the back of a truck and go get ice cream at Dairy Queen. And we're number one, that kind of thing, or great memories also of Chester would be the Chester swimming pool, which unfortunately is no longer a thing. One of the greatest I've traveled a little bit now and I've seen a lot of pools. I've never seen one quite like that, so I have a lot of wonderful memories of Chester and growing up there. It's a very idyllic place. Norman Rockwell comes to mind. One thing I like about Chester, and I can't say that, honestly, to be completely forthcoming, as a youngster, I was, maybe this annoyed me a little bit, but now I find it comforting and I enjoy it. It's when I go home, I find that almost nothing has changed. A few things change here and there, but for the most part, the people are the same. The last names are for the most part still the same. Even if I've never met someone and I hear their name, I know their family somehow. I know someone in that family. So there's not a lot of towns like that left in this country. So I like that. I think Chester's somehow insulated to a degree. I mean, if you want to go to Chester, I think you have to. It has to be a destination because it's, as you know, it's not right off of the interstate 57 or what would that 55. Not just right off of the interstate. So you have to sort of be adventurous and either be interested in Popeye or something, the Mississippi River to want to journey over there. So my theory is that's Chester's a well-kept secret, a little gem sort of hidden away that only a few select people get to enjoy. I'm glad to be one of them.
Well, we're always glad when you come home. It's always nice to see you and the guys from High South when you perform here. But I know it hasn't been just going to school in Chester and growing up in Chester and then joining High South. There's been a lot in between then and now. So tell us what did you do, Jamey, when you after you graduated at Chester High School, and what was the next step in your adult life then?
Well, when I graduated from high school, I went almost immediately. I think I went to summer classes at Eastern right after graduation of high school, and I just took a few courses and sort of got my feet wet. And my goal there was to run track and to get a business degree. And I didn't really give too much thought to staying too much involved with music. I don't know. I don't know if I just really considered that to be an option for many people. So I thought, well, maybe I'll do this. These are things that I see other people doing, getting a business degree. Maybe I'll do that somehow. But when I went to Eastern, I was quickly, my mind was quickly changed, and I found out that I spent almost all of my time in and around the music building, and those people became very close friends of mine. And I have a degree in speech communication, but I was rarely in the speech communication building. So I think, college is a good time, if we let it be a good time for us to discover the kind of things that we're really interested in, things that we really want to pursue in life. And so that's what I did. I did what most young people do. They do what they like to do. And I spent my time at the music building and making friendships there. And I was a part of their show choir and their mixed choir. And I was the singer for their big band for a little while. And, I audited classes there. I wasn't a student in that department, but they liked me enough to let me audit some classes. So I learned a little bit about the ins and outs of music, theory of music. Then, so at some point during college, I think it was my sophomore or junior year, I was approached by a friend who was also a student at Eastern, who is from Sparta, Illinois. And his name is Brian Downen, and some of the folks watching this evening probably remember Brian. Brian is just a world-class vocalist, and he's also a songwriter and a conductor and an actor, and he since has sung at the Met in New York City and all over the country in these wonderful places. So he suggested that I audition for a group in Decatur, Illinois called the Decatur Park Singers, and the Decatur Park Singers was I think it was 8 guys and 8 girls. We were all college age, and we had the opportunity to, we played about 70 shows in about 80 days during the summer. I mean, they worked us hard, and, but we traveled around in a little bus with a live band, and it was a singing and dancing sort of review, but it was very all-American and very sort of wholesome. But it gave me my first glimpse into what it would be like to be on the road with doing live music, being in a bus and occasionally staying in a hotel and traveling on and working a different crowd every night. And that was really my first glimpse as being a professional musician and singer. And so I was with the Park Singers for a couple of years, and I learned so much, and I definitely learned that I wanted to continue. But I was a little confused as to what that meant, where I would go to do that. Maybe I would go to Chicago, New York, or LA just seemed too far away. I just almost never considered it. I don't ever remember considering moving to one of those cities. And that's typically what people in my area do. They move to one of those cities. Maybe Nashville these days as well is a big mecca. But so I was freshly graduated and living in Decatur. And once again, my friend Brian Downen came to the rescue. And I said, Brian, I need some advice. What should a guy in my position do? I know I want to be in the arts, and I want to sing. And he said, Jamey, you could do a lot of different things. You're musical, and you're a singer, and I think you should go to New York, and I think you should try everything and just see what works for you. So I did. So I took his advice, and I auditioned for a musical theater school that is in New York. It's been there for a number of years. And when I was a student there, it was in the beautiful Ansonia building where Babe Ruth lived, and lots of from the Gilded Age, lots of famous sportsmen and movie stars and Broadway stars and composers and those sorts of people lived in the Ansonia. And then there was this acting school that was there. So I auditioned in Chicago and almost didn't make the audition. It was, how 57 can get heading north in the middle of December. And so they shut the interstate down, and I ended up having to pull off in Champaign-Urbana. And I hopped on a train and I pushed on, and I auditioned for this school, and it's an acting school. Now, I had never had really any acting work really. I was a novice to be honest. But I auditioned and I got one of 4 scholarships to go to this school. So there I was on my way to New York City to be an actor or something.
Well, I'm going to pause you for just a second there, Jamey. What did your mother have to say about that?
She was very encouraging, actually. I think my parents were, of course, probably concerned moving to New York City. And when I moved to New York City, it was 1994. It was, I believe, October of 94. So, New York still had a little grit.
Yeah.
It wasn't quite what it has become, or what I was actually fortunate to see the transition and see it 42nd Street turn from one thing to another,
Yeah.
I think they were supportive, and I think they were actually, I hope that we're a little excited that I think my parents always wanted me to at least continue to sing and be on stage, even if that meant I was going to be a business guy somewhere. Maybe I would, take some time in my life to do that. But here I was, really going full bore toward that sort of career, but they were very supportive.
That's great.
Yeah.
All right. So then you're in New York and you're getting ready to go to school there, and then what, Jamey?
Well, I enjoyed theater school very much, and though I think having already acquired a degree of some sort, I felt comfortable that I had something to fall back on. So I sort of, for the first time in my life, I took I took school like sort of as I'll take from this what I want from this, which I must say is not the attitude to have, because I missed out, I'm sure on a lot of things that I had to learn on the job later. I spent a year at this school, and the main rule of the school was no auditioning for outside shows. They clearly didn't want us out in the population auditioning for things, leaving school. They wanted us to finish the program. And here I was, a scholarship student, first year, and I auditioned for a show called Forever Plaid, and which happens to be a 4-man a harmony show. Actually, it was my first experience with harmony. So I maybe I lied to myself, or I justified it somehow by saying, well, I just want to go see what a New York audition is like. And I can't get into trouble for that. No, I don't have to take the gig if I get it. Besides, I'm not going to get the gig. But I got the gig. I got, like, and it was kind of a stringent audition process. I auditioned for the show initially, and then I had like 2 callbacks, and so they sort of ran me through the gamut, to get this gig. And by that time I really wanted it, So I waited around by the phone like New York actors do, and to see if I would get the call, and I did get the call. And when I got the call, the producer on the other end of the phone said, Jamey, I just want to let you know, my best friend teaches at AMDA, the school that you're attending, and I called him and I let him know that we're offering you a job. So the cat was out of the bag. I was in trouble, So the next morning I was called into the dean's office, and he said, I hear you've been auditioning for shows. And I said, well, I've just really auditioned for one show, but I would like to take this show. And he said, well, we understand, and we're sorry to see you go. We hope you'll come back. Well, you know how that goes. I never made it back to AMDA, but I hit the road for about 6 or 9 months, I believe, and to do Forever Plaid. And I was out of the city, and then I was for real working as an actor, and I was so excited because it was my first audition. Surely the world was going to just be like that forever. No. So naive. Yeah. I think I had maybe some beginner's luck or something. I don't know. But it was a great start. And I had a resume beginning to be building. And I came back to the city, and once again, I found myself in an actor's shoes. And what does an actor do? He starts drawing unemployment because there's no job. Right? So I was on unemployment for a minute, and until I found a couple of other jobs, and so then the next almost 10 years in New York were a lot of that, really. Auditioning for shows in the afternoons, hoping to get a call back, sometimes getting one, sometimes getting the job, sometimes not. But I found the kinds of day gigs that would allow me to come and go, if possible, from that job. And then, of course, you have to find a sublet to someone to live in your place, to pay the rent while you're gone. So it's a strange sort of bohemian lifestyle, to say the least. But I enjoyed that very much, and the people that I met along the way, many of them are, my best friends in the world, and to this day. So it was New York was an eye opener for me. I think New York. A very good friend of mine said, "New York will keep you young man." He said, every time you walk around a corner, you're faced with another decision. And that's the truth. The stimuli are just coming at you all the time. Even when you're sleeping, I lived on the first floor of a 5-story walk-up next to a school. So kids were lining up to go into school outside of my bedroom. And there's a lot of noise just always bombarding you and stimuli. So I felt like it did sort of, I learned a lot. I felt like it kept me some sort of elixir of youth is in New York City as well. And then, I guess to cap off my New York days, I guess the biggest thing that I did in the city was a wonderful off-Broadway show, a tribute to my hero, my vocal hero at least, Old Blue Eyes, Frank Sinatra, who's been my favorite singer for as long as I can remember. So, and I was part of that run, which is an award-winning show in New York for a couple of years, and I was part of the Philadelphia cast and a cast that went to Florida as well. So that's New York in a nutshell.
And it doesn't end there, right?
No, it doesn't end there. All the while there, I was, you asked me earlier about growing up in a small town.
Yeah.
And, you move from a small town, even if I sort of had this buffer, this Decatur's not a big city, but it's, to me, that was kind of a city coming from Chester. So to move, it was sort of a stepping stone, I guess, to get to New York, but nothing can prepare you for that. And so, I think New York brings out the best and the worst in people. And so in me, it brought out a lot of, I think, a little anxiety, not a terrible amount, but I found after a number of years there, I was writing a lot of poetry and things. I didn't see myself writing poetry, but, a lot of that poetry I was writing, it was all about living in a small town and growing up in a small town, or things that those sort of themes, that was the voice that I was writing with. And I was just writing these for myself. I wasn't writing these for publication or for anyone to read. But one day it sort of dawned on me that I thought I was maybe writing country music, maybe these are songs. So I sort of cultivated that. I had friends who were songwriters, so it wasn't completely foreign to me. I showed one of my buddies, showed him my journal, and and he read a few things. He was gentle, but he was encouraging. And so I continued to write. And again, when you have any sort of drive to do something, especially something as, there's no sort of book you can go, at least there wasn't when I was coming up that I knew of. You couldn't get on the internet then and Google it. So, you find like-minded people, and I did that. I found people who were also songwriters. Most of them like better than me, which is a good thing. That's an old saying in the songwriter world. You want to write up, write with people who are better than you, raise your game. And so I did as much of that as I could. And so I compiled, some music, and a friend of mine went in to a recording studio near Wall Street, actually. It was a very strange little studio in the basement of a building, very mysterious. And we recorded 4 songs. And out of those 4 songs, we got picked up to do a little European tour of France and Switzerland, Italy, and I think that might have been it. And so I got to go to Europe on these songs that I had written. So all of a sudden in my life, I started seeing myself maybe stepping away from these auditions and in the afternoons and the mornings and standing in line in New York for an open call for a Broadway show with 300 other guys who look a lot like me, who have the same range as me and probably a better resume. So, so I found myself sort of just doing exactly what Brian Downen said, try everything. And that's what I did. And so I think, by virtue of being a small town boy, going to the big city, the city put the country back in me a little bit. And I was able to start growing as a songwriter and finding my voice in that way. And that sort of started to tie the knot up on my years in New York. And whether I knew that or not, something else was on the horizon for me. So that was country music, I think, or, popular music.
It sounds like a pretty special path that comes next then. On to Nashville then, or what was next, Jamey?
So, next was it was a trip to Long Island, out to the, what is the area out there? Oh, I can't remember. My wife will kill me. But I went to a wedding with a buddy, actually, for some friends of ours, and I met this girl at this wedding. We were in the Hamptons. I'm sorry, we were in the Hamptons, and it was very beautiful. I had never been to the Hamptons, and there I was in the Hamptons, and I met this girl, and she was a member of the Broadway show Swing, and the groom at the wedding was also a cast member and a mutual friend of ours. And but she and I had never met. And so I danced with that girl that night. Thank God my mom taught me how to jitterbug, and I could at least move a little bit. So I met this wonderful girl, and and she became my wife, and thank God she's still with me, because it's, living with an artist, if she's an artist herself, but my kind of artist sometimes is, it's very unpredictable. So kudos to her. But she suggested then, it's a weird how these little guideposts in your life point you in directions, these people that are points of light. And she, my wife Geraldine, received an email from her sister, who was working at Universal Records, or Universal in general, in Los Angeles. And she knew that Geraldine's new boyfriend was, an aspiring, maybe country music singer. And so she said, hey, there's this TV show that they're auditioning for, and it's going to be on the USA Network. It's called Nashville Star. And they're going to take 10 finalists from all over the country, and they're auditioning not too far from you in Connecticut. I think you should go. So, this was the 1 year after the very first season of American Idol. So this was clearly country music's reply to American Idol. Well, we've got people too, they say, So I won't say it was a dare, but it was a sort of all right, well, hey, let's see if you got what it takes, and if you do, great, and we'll pursue this. So we went to the general audition, and we waited all day like everyone else. I must have heard Martina McBride's song over like 150 times. All the girls were singing the same song with the same high note, and everybody was great. And that way it was very much like the Broadway auditions that I'd been going on. Everyone had talent, and everybody looked good and seemed to be, really together. So anyway, I did my thing. I got up and I auditioned, and I won. So they sent me on to a regional audition where they were flying in other young artists from all over the country, from Texas and Los Angeles and Michigan and wherever, and they would jumble them up. So you couldn't be necessarily near where you were from. So I was competing with people from all over the place. And that sort of made me nervous, because now all of a sudden I wasn't just competing in country music in Connecticut. I was competing in country music with people who were like from the country, you know, who really knew what was going on. So I was like, well, let's see how this goes. So, you know, we walk in and it's the TV camera. It's just like what you would imagine, you know, behind the scenes in some TV show, you know, all the cameras and the railroad tracks, the cameras are pushing up and pulling back, and the lights and the ropes for the crowd has to be behind. It was just really, wow, this is really something, you know. There's a big trailer out front of the building that had the guy in there, the engineer doing. I mean, this was a full-blown production, and so I was clearly nervous, but once again, I was very fortunate in this instance, and I won the regional there, and I got to go to this TV show in Nashville, Tennessee, called Nashville Star. You've probably heard of it, right?
Of course. I think all of Chester was so excited when you were there, Jamey. Yeah. I think we all really just got into it. It was so much fun.
It was a good time. We had a wonderful time, and I learned a great deal. I had a ball. You know, it was someone told me then, you know, Jamey, this will be one of the things that you do along the way. This won't be the end all be all of what you've done. And I wasn't quite sure what he meant by that at the time. But now, many years later, I know exactly what he meant, you know. In fact, you know, the slogan from that TV show was, "One will walk away a star, the rest will just keep walking."
I don't remember that.
Yeah, so I was one of the ones that just kept walking. But, you know, that's okay. As long as you keep moving forward, and as long as you still want it and you have the desire and all of that stuff, I think it's okay to keep walking, because that's when you learn all the good stuff. I was probably very fortunate to not win that show. And you know, I probably had a lot of other opportunities that came my way, you know, because I didn't win, you know, but it was a great kickstart. I'll tell you that.
I'm sure it was. And I know that there was some other things that happened between that point and where you are now. But if it's okay with you, let's go ahead and jump to High South and
sure,
and how that all came about, and how you met Kevin in Phoenix, and just give us the lowdown on all that, if you would, please.
Absolutely. I'll briefly go back to Nashville. Geraldine and I spent 3.5 years in Nashville. I had an opportunity that came up out of the blue, as oddly, you know, sometimes when a window closes, a door opens, or vice versa. And this is what happened to me in that case. I got a phone call from a company in Dallas, Texas, and they own, it's a sort of a conglomeration. They own a whole sort of chain of these Texas-sized nightclubs. 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 people a night. I'd never been in a nightclub that big. It was really unbelievable. So they wanted me to come down and front their band. And they had planned to open an independent Texas record label. So I would have been their first artist. So, you know, again, we took the opportunity, and we never saw ourselves living in Dallas, Texas. We have no roots there, but we took a chance, and I must say Texas was great to us, to both of us. To my wife had a wonderful experience there, teaching for many years ballet, and great success. And I was as busy as I could be for the most part, singing. And you know, I just got tired of singing cover songs, to be honest with you. And I got tired of sort of people telling me what I needed to do. And I thought, well, you know, the clock is running, and I need to branch out a little bit. So I started another band. I quit my job, and I started a different band We were still doing some covers and a few originals, and just trying to find my way back to being an original artist, you know. And I ended up running into a woman in Dallas who had never managed an artist before in her life, but she had a great interest in what I was doing, and she thought she could help. So together we sort of formed a plan, and we started working together, and we decided we needed to maybe go to Nashville and maybe do some showcasing, maybe for some record labels. I had done some of that right after Nashville Star, and I had some interest, but I had never signed the deal. So I thought, well, I need to get back and sort of get my feet wet again. So I planned a trip to Nashville to do a test run, a dry run, and I brought my band, and I didn't invite anyone really except for friends, because I just wanted the guys to understand what a Nashville showcase felt like and smelled like and looked like, and what they could expect. And for me also, I wanted to go, okay, let me get a little refresher course here. So I did that, and it was fun. You know, there was a small crowd of friends and you know, some fans from the old Nashville Star days, but you know, it was live on the radio. It was on a syndicated radio show called the Billy Block Show. And Billy was a good friend of mine. He's since passed a few years ago, but he always took great care of me. He always put me on the show, and he put me on the cover of their publication that they would put out monthly, and advertised that I would be there and doing this show. Well, these Austrian producers who happened to be in town looking for new material, new songs, saw this publication and remembered that I had been on this TV show called Nashville Star. So they put two and two together. They called Billy Block. Billy Block in turn called me, and he said, hey Jamey, I got these Austrian producers. You go, man, I don't know anything about it other than that, but I thought I'd give you the phone number. They want to talk to you, and I'll leave it to you from here. So thanks, Billy. So I called them up, and they were putting together. They had an idea to put together what they were calling a super group, kind of like the Eagles, and so they had been talking to a number of famous people. Phil Vassar was one of them. They talked to a couple of the guys from there was a band called Little Texas in the early 90s. It was very, very famous. And a couple of those guys were interested, and a handful of others, and me. So they flew me to Nashville, and I met with them, and they liked what they saw and heard. And prior to that, they had actually sent me a few tracks to go into a studio in Dallas and do my thing, you know. So I did all that, and I sent that to them, and they really liked the tracks. And I particularly did well on one track that they thought was like the track that was going to be, you know, the big song to break out this band. So they were excited, and I was excited, and all of a sudden, one by one, all of these people that were sort of flirting with the idea of being in this band fell to the wayside. For one reason or another, it didn't work out for them. And so it was just me. And I got a call one day from one of these Austrian producers, and he said, yeah, Jamey, you know, listen, man, basically, we're at the end of our rope. If you think you can put this together, if you can find the guys and you can make this work, then we'll see what we come up with, and if it's worth it, we'll proceed. So I looked at my wife, and she looked at me, and she said, all the people we know in the years that we've been in the entertainment business, you can't tell me we don't know guys that could do this, or people who know the guys. So I'm like, you know what? You're right. That's a can-do attitude. So we started looking, and I brought in two guys, one from New York, one from Nashville, and myself. That made three. And then one of the Austrian producers had a friend who was going to a cellist who was going to a musical school in Los Angeles, and he knew this great young singer named Kevin Campos. So they met Kevin over the internet. We all met over the internet, and we all flew to Austria to see if we could make music together, sort of blindly, really, to see if this was going to work. So they flew us there for, I think the first time was just for a couple of weeks. And we sat down, we had beers, and we all lived in a house together right across the street from this beautiful, beautiful recording studio owned by a Swarovski heir. So the whole studio looks like you're in a Swarovski store. It's pretty fantastic. But so we spent those 2 weeks writing songs, recording what we had written, trying to learn how to blend with each other. And they got really excited. And the next thing you know, they flew in a record label through Universal in London. And she spent a couple of days with us. She was one of the A&R agents at Universal. And actually it was Decca UK, which is an umbrella. It's under the umbrella of Universal. And so she really loved, she hung out with us. You could tell she was checking us out. Of these guys for real? Can we bet on these guys? That sort of thing. And so she left, and everything seemed good. And the next thing you know, we got signed. We were signed to Universal Records by the president of Universal, who is a man named Lucien Grange. He runs Universal worldwide. So we had a big deal going in, and we made a great record. Kevin and I and two other guys, and we were a foursome. And we were okay. We had a lot of talent. We weren't together long enough to really get really good, but we had a lot of great press. We were on TV many times, and we had the start of a career. We started a brand. And back then we weren't called High South, by the way. We were hoping to be called South, but it turned out there was a band in, I think it was London, called South. And they weren't really doing much, but they loved that name, and they weren't giving it up. And we offered them money and everything. And they weren't parting with South. So we spent a few months actually trying to figure out. We wanted to keep South. What would we do to sort of round that out? For a while, it was Fly South, because in Europe, when people think of good times and vacation, they say they fly south. So that was sort of a unique term to us. It didn't really make that much sense. So we were sort of reluctantly like, well, that's the best we can think of, Fly South. And then one afternoon, we were struck with this great name. The head of A&R from the record label leaned in, and our producer was inside the office speaking with the head of the label, and he said, "How's High South?" He said, "They're great. Thank you very much. What do you think of High South?" And we're like, that sounds perfect. That's perfect for us. So all of a sudden we were High South. And so we released that record. We charted. We did kind of popped and fizzled, and then it went away. And one of the guys, one of the four, almost immediately left the band. And then there were three of us, and we thought, well, that's okay. Let's just do a threesome, let's just do that. So we had been scheduled to play for probably 5 or 6 weeks in Europe, and we were to start out with a nice 2-week tour in Switzerland. And this was after our first record, before we even had an idea of getting a second record. We'd been dropped by the label, by the way. The label dropped us. They had released us in Germany and Austria and Switzerland, the Netherlands, and we had charted in 3 of those countries. So I was shocked to be dropped, but we were dropped. But nonetheless, our producer became our manager in the interim, and we flew back to Europe with this 2-week starter in Switzerland. And when we got there, the label had not scheduled a gig. We thought we had an entire little tour set up, and there, all of a sudden, we were just doing nothing. So, we wrote songs, And we wrote some really good songs in the matter of about 5 days. And when we finally had a gig, we picked up this, I hesitate to say, you know, I love I have come to love the people who ran this gig, but it was a very small, private sort of gig at a truck, at a Swiss version of a truck stop in the countryside in Switzerland. And you know, we were deflated, Tammy, let me tell you. When we rolled out of the van, we were deflated and we were bummed out. And we went in and we set up our stuff. And the head of Universal from Switzerland walked in the door and sat in the front row. And he sat with our manager, and we signed a record deal with him the next day. So we had another chance. He gave us another chance. We were to do another record, but he wanted it done right then. So we wrote our record. We got the record deal. We drove to Munich and we recorded the record all during this one trip. That was supposed to be something else entirely, but you know, it kept us alive, and we did okay. The second record didn't quite have the kind of fire in the budget that we had with the first one, but it was sort of a coming of age record for us as writers. We wrote the entire record this time, minus 3 songs, and you know, we became more confident in our songwriting abilities. So there we were after a second record, and lo and behold, the third of our threesome decided he just wanted to concentrate on songwriting. He didn't want to be in a band. So then we went from 4 to 3 to 2. Now we're down to 2, Kevin, Campos, and myself. And I think by this point, we were bitten by the bug. We didn't want to quit, and we wanted to continue. And we had and have a great manager who's very zen and we call him our guru. We call him Guru Dave. I know it's appropriate to say Guru Dev, but we call him Guru Dave. Anyway, our Guru Dave was very encouraging, and he said, listen, we can do this. You guys can do this. Let's keep this up. Go back to Nashville or go back to the States, start looking to find a third. So I had one guy in mind. So I didn't have any backups, you know what I mean? It could have been a long haul trying to find somebody. So I called up the first person I thought of, which was Phoenix Mendoza. And I said, hey, Phoenix. He picked up the phone, which was great. You know, in Nashville, you never can tell. Sometimes people won't pick up the phone. And so he picked up the phone, and I said, hey, have any interest in being a part of High South? And he hemmed and hawed about it. You know, I don't know. I don't really know. And I said, listen, tell you what, let me fly you down to Dallas, Texas. Kevin's going to fly in. I'd like you guys to meet. We'll write a couple of songs, maybe sing a little bit, drink some beer, and we'll hang out. And you can go home, no strings attached. If you got a weekend away, if nothing else. So he agreed, and we flew him to Dallas, Texas. We wrote 3 songs within the first 2 days, sang together. And immediately we were planning our future. And the rest of the time we drank beer and sat at the pool and talked about what we were going to do with our lives, with all this money we were going to make in the music business.
When was that, Jamey? How long ago was that?
That was in 2015.
Okay, only 5 years ago then, huh?
Only 5 years ago, yeah.
Wow.
So I don't know if I would call that a nutshell, Tammy. I probably talked for 2 hours, but that's how this incarnation of High South came together. The third incarnation.
That's just great, Jamey. So wonderful. And you guys have been extremely successful. I know that was just the beginning, but all these wonderful adventures to Europe and different places. Tell us what it's like being on the road with High South.
Well, I will tell you that the road is no place for the weary or the faint at heart. It's a tough road to hoe. And you know, you got to really love what you're doing. And as we always say, you know, the hang has to be good, you know, has to be a good environment to hang out in, you know? Yeah. So I think For us, it's, when we're in Europe and we're on the road, it's run and gun. We got to make hay when the sun is shining. And so, I think the last two trips, well, barring this last trip, we went and had to come home due to this virus. But prior to that, we had been over there in the fall, and we did about 20 shows in about 18 days, and that's pretty typical of how it goes over there. We're running and gunning from city to city, but we've seen some great things. A lot of things we've seen just from the bus, or we see the back of the venue or something. But we do genuinely get to meet so many wonderful people, and we've made so many really, really great friends, I think lifelong friends over there doing this. So it's been, it's really been the experience of a lifetime to be able to, I've walked through Berlin, and I've seen, the Brandenburg Gate, and I've seen Checkpoint Charlie, and I've been to Munich, and, there's just Vienna and Amsterdam, and so many wonderful, beautiful cities that I could have only dreamed about or read about or seen on Facebook or something had I not been blessed with the opportunity of music and getting to ride that ride. And so I'm grateful for that.
I'm quickly trying to get a Facebook picture up here for you to look at. A picture like that, Jamey.
Yeah. So that's the last tour that we did over there last fall, the one I was talking about. This was, we were opening up for a guy named Roger Hodgson. I don't know if you're familiar with the name Roger Hodgson or not, but he was the voice and the main writer of a very famous band called Supertramp.
Okay.
So when we came out on stage, these people, all of these people were already there. A lot of times when you're the opening act for someone like that, people are filing in and maybe they're going to the restroom or checking their phone or looking for a friend or something. But this was one of those wonderful experiences where they were with us from the very beginning. And, we had them sort of in, as they say, in the palm of our hand, I think that's 5,000 people. And Roger Hodgson can still sing all of that stuff in the original key, and the band was on fire. So it was a double whammy for us. We got to perform in front of that crowd and have that elation. And then we got to walk backstage and watch him just proceed to melt faces, with all of those great songs from Breakfast in America. I mean, I remember the record with the waitress yeah, you remember that? So that was of opportunities like this throughout Europe over our time there. A number of TV shows that were very much like that sort of scenario, outdoor, 5,000 people, and we've been lucky like that. It's been really great. Life opportunities, just don't come along that much. So
lucky until this year when everything changed a couple of months ago, huh? Not just for
Tammy,
for High South, but for all of us.
For all of us, we are all in that boat. Yeah, I know. So but that's in a weird way. It's been comforting. It takes the focus off of all of ourselves, right? We can take the focus off of ourselves and know that wow, everyone I look at for the most part is struggling with this at the same time. So and I think maybe there will be some good things to come out of this. I know it's been nice to actually spend some time with my wife. In the last 5 years, I have not been able to do much of that. So I know that's been great. And I have 2 Yorkies who are like our kids, and so that's been great. And I've sort of gotten back to when you're always on the road and you're always thinking about the business side of things, the creative side sometimes just sort of goes away. It's sort of like a libido. It goes away. You know what I mean? It's like what's going on here? Can I still write songs? Can I still be creative, or am I just, I don't know, did I forget how to use that muscle? So this this experience has sort of got me back being in touch with the songwriter in me. And so I'm starting to churn out some songs and some ideas, and getting a little pile going again, which is good. Yeah. So that's comforting. So that's been nice. I've been able to sort of center myself in that way.
And, High South has an album too, right? Coming out.
You know, we have a new album out in Europe. We did the whole pre-roll, the whole rollout for that was very successful. Rolling Stone magazine picked us up and presented our tour. They did we had a full page article with a big nice photo in the magazine, and so all of those things that we had always dreamed of, some of those things that we had always dreamed of, were starting to come down the path, you know, and so, you know, we showed up, we did 4 shows. I think they were all sold out, but the meat of the tour was just about to kick off. And when sort of tragedy struck, you know, we actually got the very last flight to America on Delta out of Munich.
Wow.
And so, you know, we had been on the phone and they were saying, you know, the wait time was 6 hours. So somehow we just got through, and so we went home, and subsequently the rest of that tour was of course canceled. We were supposed to return for 2 weeks in June, canceled. Supposed to return for 10 days in July, once again canceled. You know, everything has been canceled. So I'm not sure when we're going to get back to work. You know, we still have a number of shows on our schedule that you're actually you're scrolling through right now that folks can see it. This is our website. It's the address is highsouthofficial.com. You can see, you know, a lot of these dates are going to be coming up. August, we have something in August that if the world is working again, looks like we'll be back on the road to some degree in August. But, you know, just between you and me and the fence post, I'm not sure what that's going to look like. Everyone, as far on the promotion side and on the venue buying side, to our agent, everyone is just waiting to see what happens. You know, in Europe, they rescheduled all of those tours. They rescheduled them twice because they thought, well, they'll be back in October. We can do all this in October. No, can't do it in October. Now they've rescheduled it for March of next year. So, you know, we're all really up in the air. And we're sort of in a precarious situation too, I think, because we're beholden to a live audience. In the music business, Tammy has changed a great deal from Breakfast in America when those records were coming out. Even through the 90s, they had until, you know, Napster and stuff. But the world has changed musically. If you want to make money in the music business, you have to be playing live. And that means you have to have a crowd. So I'm not sure really what's going to happen for us, or what, like I say, what that's really going to look like. If we're going to have sections, where there's been talk of you know, sequestering sections of theaters and rooms where there's this many people here and this kind of space, and then this many people here. And I think for the short term, it's not going to look like it used to for a while.
So the best way to keep up on all that, then, Jamey, would be to go to your website and look for updates and that kind of thing, right?
Our website is for sure. Also, in a more timely fashion, if you want to know day-to-day stuff, our Facebook page is probably the the surefire way to find out what's going on. Something is up there almost every day. And also, if people want to get on and send a message to us, I generally answer the messages on our Facebook page myself. So, if you write us with a question, we'll do our best to answer it. When someone does respond, it's always someone from High South. It's not computer generated or it's not from a manager somewhere. You're getting the guys. So,
That's great, Jamey. Can you believe we've been talking for an hour already?
Wow. Okay. All right. I need to wrap this up, don't I?
And we can't wrap this up without mentioning our moms. And let me see if I can get your mom's mic unmuted and see if I can get her to start her video. That'll work. There's our
Wendy. Happy Mother's Day. Cheers.
Oh, this has been such fun.
Oh, good. I'm having fun too, just talking about myself.
No, there's nothing I'd rather listen to.
Well, we're so glad, Wendy, that you and all the other folks were here this evening with us. And Jamey, before we conclude the presentation this evening, is there anything special that you would like to say or do? I hope you have a little treat for us.
Yeah, you asked me if I would sing a couple of tunes or sing a song or play something, and of course we'll do that. But I would like to say something before I do that. Just thanks to Chester for always, for the support and for all the interest in what I have doing in my life. And I'm really grateful. I'm really grateful for that. It's just really nice. It's really, really nice to know. It's comforting, and it feels wonderful, and the feeling is mutual.
Well, we love it when you come to Chester, and look forward to seeing you and Kevin and Phoenix and Josh sometimes with you as well. It's just always a pleasure to have you here in Chester and enjoy your music. But since we can't do that right now, how about giving us a little taste of what we're missing?
So I thought I would reach into the olden days, and go all the way back to the beginning of why I really wanted to be a singer. And that goes back to, you remember I mentioned Frank Sinatra at the beginning of our conversation. I don't know, some people in Chester will remember that I was in a band called Blue Light with 3 other Chester boys. And we played, jazz standards and basically the Frank Sinatra songbook, because that's what I was crazy about. But Jeff Welge was on piano, and Brad Ulrich Beezer was on drums, and David Stallman was on bass. And we did our best to pretend, we were the Rat Pack, and so I'm going to go all the way back, and I'm going to do something from that time in my life. Be gentle, okay. Can you hear this? All right. All of me, why not take all of me? Can't you see I'm no good without you? Take my lips, I want to lose them. Take my arms, I'll never use them. Well, your goodbye left me with eyes that sigh. How can I go on, dear, without you? You took the part that once was my heart, so why not take all of me? All right, you guys sing along, help me out. All of me, come on, take all of me. Can't you see I'm no good without you? Take my lips, I want to lose them. Take my arms, baby, I'll never use them. It's your goodbye left me with eyes that cry. How can I go on without you? Using karaoke. You took the part that once was my heart, so why not take all of me? Blank, blank, blank. All right, there you go.
That was great, Jamey. Thank you so much.
A little, I'm technology's crazy. I'm like, what am I going to do here? But I have.
You did it wonderful. Thank you
so
that right
much. Off of YouTube, Tammy. So.
Jamey, I don't know about you as far as the recording. I'd just like to take the opportunity to wish all the moms out there a very happy Mother's Day, and hope you had a little Mother's Day treat by enjoying some time with Jamey.
Sure did. Happy Mother's Day, Mom. I love you. Here we go.
That was beautiful, Jamey. Thanks so much for being with us tonight.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure. It was a treat. Thanks a lot.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Peace and love to you.